Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. We'll start our conversation now on the program, and we're looking at the Monetary Policy Committee's decision, of course, and all the developments on the financial services sector. I'm being joined on the program by the Trade and the Director, by the Chief Executive Officer of UHY Margie and Co. Limited, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, and of course the Director of Trade Promotion of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Dele Alimi. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I have so much running in my head. It's a Monday morning, so yes, I should be fired up and I should be running as well. Just as I'm hoping that both of you gentlemen will be ready to talk about the decisions of the MPC on Friday. Now let's really look at it. It was decided to keep the key rate unchanged at 12% for the 19th time in a row. That's a record. And also not to take any stance on the cash reserve requirements for public and private sector deposits. But then some have argued that this is not what is needed at this time, especially since they were hoping that if this change had actually come, it would have made banks more dynamic, so to speak. Mr. Idahosa, let me start from you. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's the new administration at CBN dealing with reality. That is what you want and what is possible. When the new administration started, they were hoping to speed up growth, to expand access to lending, and try and gradually move the interest rates downwards, at least point downwards, and start a process of bringing it down and be able to stimulate further growth. But 2 to 3 months on, inflation is almost hitting the CBN target of 9% from very low of 7 and less than 7. So the Monetary Policy Committee has to deal with that reality, that you cannot allow the success so far gained in managing inflation to just run away and then have a big inflation issue on your hands. So what they are trying to do now is put a tight hold on the inflation pressure and see how they can go back and address the growing economy without inflation that is beyond the target that they had fixed.
Now, in terms of growing the economy, they also mentioned the fact that there was high liquidity in the banking sector, about 300 million naira thereabouts. And if we have that much money in liquidity, how come the real sector isn't getting any of it? Mr. Alimi, let me come to you on that.
Well, I think it's just a function of the rate at which this credit are available for people to use. The real sector requires long-term cheap fund, and all this money we're talking about is not available at that level. And that is basically where nobody's getting it, especially the SMEs that we continue to clamor require so much support in terms of credit. So if they are not getting it, if they are not accessing it at the rate that will be viable and profitable for them, the money is just sitting down there doing nothing, and it's not in the best interest. And that is why the SEC has continuously said it that, look, this stringent measure in terms of monetary policy may not on the long run be in the best interest of the real sector.
Which means at this particular point in time, we should have begun to see a kind of shift, maybe not a major shift, but a shift nonetheless, to ensure that the interest rates begin to drop. Because if the banks do not feel comfortable, in terms of the interest rates at which they borrow from the CBN, then they definitely will not be reducing their rates. Mr. Idahosa.
Yeah, I think that's the dilemma that the CBN is in right now. The previous CBN administration said, well, yes, we need growth, but sorry, we can't move interest rates because we are focused on inflation and the exchange rates. Yes. This new administration is trying to shift from that and say, look, we need to promote growth, we need to deal with unemployment. And the CBN actually was hoping that inflation will stay something like 8% below 8%, so you have 1% margin to play with and begin to bring down interest rates from, say, 12% to 11.5 or thereabouts to give a signal to the banks that it's about time to start bringing down rates. But unfortunately, inflation was moving in the opposite direction.
8.5 at the moment.
And dangerously close to 9%, which is like the cap that CBN had set for itself. So there is what the CBN likes to do and what it has to do because of the way inflation is moving. So for the CBN to be able to do what it has to do, then inflation has to start coming down. You have to look at what is driving inflation and see if those factors can come down, and then CBN can really begin to bring down interest rates as it wants to do.
So we have last month's inflation figures being 8.5%. You talked about the factors. What are those factors? They know it, of course, as a CBN governor, but could we just highlight them?
Well, one of these is food prices. You see, that's also when you hold the CBN for so many things. Food prices cannot be controlled by CBN. And why are food prices going up? Take 3 or 4 states in this country that contribute significantly to food production, whether it is animal production, cows, goats, tomatoes, and so on, are out of the production system right now because of the security that is going on. But all the people living in that area still have to feed. So they are moved to other parts of the country, and they are putting pressure on the available food stock. So that's going to be there until you deal with that security situation. The other factor also is that we need to fast track the agricultural programs that are increasing food supply. If you can, for example, deal with rice, which the government is really working on, and become self-sufficient in rice, first, we spend less on foreign exchange imports, so the pressure on foreign exchange goes down. Second, the price of rice produced in Nigeria will not have the freights you pay on imports, so the price of rice will also go down. And you can imagine how many millions of Nigeria, how many tons of rice we eat every day, and how that adds to inflation. So we really have to deal with increasing supply of basic goods and services, particularly food, that is driving the inflation now.
Mr. Idausa, hold on to your thoughts. Mr. Alimi, let me come to you on this one. Now, one of the parameters that was used to determine if the rates should change or not are developments on the global economic front. Of course, you also heard when I talked about it this morning that G20 finance ministers and bank chiefs are actually looking at putting an extra $2 trillion into the global economy. Now, at the moment, it seems as if the global economy is moderately to relatively stable, and the outlook is good. So wouldn't it be appropriate at the moment, because that was one of the reasons that the committee actually gave for keeping the rates the way they are. So if it's relatively moderate to relatively stable at the moment, shouldn't it affect how they would have changed their minds?
Incidentally, what that also means for us is that some of the portfolio investments that came into Nigeria may be leaving Nigeria. That's also an indication. It may be leaving Nigeria because now, unlike some months ago, maybe like 2 years ago, a year ago, where people saw us as the best place to come, best place to invest. Now, in the U.S., there's so much stability. The U.S. government is now withdrawing the stimulus. Things are getting better. So people now have more places to go, obviously. And the fear of the CBN is that you now have to make sure that the implications in terms of capital reversal and everything is taken care of within our own monetary system. And I think that's why they did this. So, they have their point. Like Mr. Idausa said, they have their point. But there are so many other factors affecting inflation that is not within their control. They are speaking about the security situation in the north, which has affected agricultural outputs. We also have the issue of power. We have so many issues concerning infrastructures, which unfortunately is beyond the control of CBN. So while on one side CBN is fighting hard to control through tight monetary policy, there are also other areas where the fiscal authorities need also to take care of. So there must be a balance between these two, because we must not agree within ourselves what do we want to do. There is this risk of inflation going up and exchange rate instability. But we also have the problem of growth, which is supposed to be powered by the real sector. And the real sector is not getting the kind of support it needs, especially from the financial sector.
Okay, let me just take you up on that part. Yes. We know that the real GDP grew by 6.54% in the second quarter of this year and 6.21% in the first quarter. Okay. Yeah. That's fair, relatively fair in terms